And do me a favor, hit the like button. Just come on, just listen. We get like consistently like 30 views, 20 views. So you're watching this, but you're not clicking on the like button. Hit the like button. Do us that solid. Do Kevin a favor.
Please,
Come,
please, ladies and gentlemen, he gets
come
stuck
on.
in this cave at night.
It's gonna help out. Even if you hate the show, if you hate the show or disagree with our content, let us know. Post a comment. But if you like it or if it's all right, just hit the like button as a favor. Now, do it right now. Right now, do it right now. Okay, all right. Let's talk about She-Hulk for a second. Season 1 just ended yesterday, and what's your overall review of She-Hulk? Yay, nay, okay.
It was marginally okay in my opinion, and I do mean marginally okay. Tatiana Maslany was cast beautifully in the role, in my opinion. But my negative end of what the show was, or the reason why I don't give it a complete thumbs up all the way across the board, is there was no story. Okay. You had a very attractive woman, painted green, looking green. She looked like Jessica. She looked like the character, but that was about it. And they took the Ally McBeal essence and dumped it into She-Hulk. Now, granted, that was there in the comics from the beginning, so that really wasn't that much of a stretch. But if you'll allow me to give you a little bit more of a detailed breakdown, my problem with She-Hulk, as well as a couple of these other Marvel streaming shows that have been done, and bear with me, please, is that the creators behind a lot of the shows, I'm not talking about the comics or even some of the animated stuff that's been done, I'm talking about the streaming shows and some of the movies. I think when these folks are sitting down in these planning sessions, especially at Marvel recently, somebody at the end of the table or somewhere within the space of the table is saying to themselves, we're creating comic book shows. And they're taking the idea of comic and they're running with it. And they think that the idea of comic means you have to make everything funny. Everything has to be, a guffaw laugh. It has to look and feel like an episode of something that Jerry Lewis or the Three Stooges would have done. That's problem number one. Problem number two is, in spite of the show having a decent look to a certain extent, the writing and the stories, for lack thereof, it wasn't funny. You sat there waiting for something to happen, nothing did. And if this is what Marvel is going to do, and God forbid if this is what they're planning for the return of Daredevil or any of the other movies that may be on the horizon, and yes, my friend, that includes the Fantastic Four, the big hallelujah crescendo throne sitting that Marvel has had, it's going to come to a very quick end because fans are not going to support it.
Well said, my friend, and very, very well said. And I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, this conversation is going to go on beyond She-Hulk because you're absolutely right. If we look at the trend, we have to be careful. But if we look at the trend of particularly the TV series, I would say that there are a lot of problems. So now let's talk about She-Hulk in particular. Let's talk about She-Hulk in particular. For me, She-Hulk was a fail. Now, let me be very careful with that statement. Let me be very, very careful. It was a fail in the sense that it wasn't good. Like sometimes, and I've said this before in previous shows, sometimes we change our standards for whatever reason when it comes to superhero discussion. If it's something isn't bad, then we say, oh, it's not as, oh my God. So we expect it to be awful. And when it's not awful, we're like, hey, it's pretty good. Like, it's pretty good. Um, that's not how we rate things here on this show. The standard has to be good, great, awesome. And if you're not good, then you're not good. You're just not good. And She Hulk failed on many, many levels because it wasn't good. Why wasn't it good? There are many, many layers under which. So it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. Let's look at the positive first. Let's look at the positive. The positive is they made a show, She Hulk. It's a show. The positive is it wasn't bad. It wasn't awful. It wasn't the worst thing I've seen on this planet. The positive is the last 3 episodes, I think, were better than the first three or whatever, the first episodes. It seemed to have gotten a little bit better in terms of the direction. Um, what's good, they took a certain amount of risks that, yeah, I kind of appreciate it. So, for example, watching the very last episode, the finale yesterday, what they did was a big, it's a unique, and you got to give credit for that sort of courage to say, I'm going to do something unique. And I don't think I've ever seen that before, where the character not only breaks the fourth wall, but comes out and goes into the world and is trying to talk to the producers and so on and so forth. That was an interesting choice. Did it work? I don't think so. Did the choices that they were making in the last few episodes save the show? I don't think so. And the reason I don't think so is because of what you said. And it's a very, very important thing that I think most people will miss. What you said is there was no story. Like, there was no coherent story. What happened in the She-Hulk episode? Everything was disjointed. Each episode was in and of itself, and none of them were interesting enough to be worthy. So either you have independent stories that are really awesome or really fun that you can say, wow, did you watch that episode? Or you have a slow build to a crescendo that makes episode 1, 2, and 3 significant in the fact that it's the foundation for what happens later. Neither of those things happen with the She-Hulk. Neither of those things happen with the She-Hulk. Ally McBeal, I keep hearing that term, even in the finale. They're like, "Look, we're trying to go for the Ally McBeal lawyer show." You failed. I'm sorry. That wasn't a good delivery of a lawyer fun show. It simply wasn't. CGI. I hate to say it, but CGI was a failure. The movement of the character just wasn't realistic enough. Now, here again, this is another example of, was it awful? Was it bad? No, it wasn't. But was it good? It wasn't good either. Therefore, it's not good. She-Hulk, there's a way she's talking, and it's like, and I am going to talk to you, and today we are going to talk like that. And oh, I am going, and it's like, I could see the CGI like a million ways to Sunday. I can see it from far away. I can see it from close up. That's a failure. I can give you credit for good effort, but if I'm judging you as complete result, that's an unfortunate failure. Action-wise, it's a superhero show. The action was utterly, absolutely lame. So as I was watching, so these are all the reasons why it failed. No stories, no plot, poor character development. So as I was watching the show yesterday, I was thinking to myself, what's the difference? Like, why am I not enjoying this? And I compared it to 2 shows. I compared it to Miss Marvel, and I compared it to what's the show on HBO with the superhero? He was in Suicide Squad. I always forget his name.
Peacemaker.
Peacemaker. My God, I always forget his name. What's the difference? Because in my opinion, Peacemaker worked. Peacemaker is a good show. I enjoyed that show thoroughly. It had humor, which you would think, well, I'm not a humor guy. I hate when they interject humor in superheroes. It had a lot of humor, but the humor worked. And She-Hulk, the humor worked a lot less, in my opinion. It wasn't as terrible as what some of the stuff that I've seen, but it just wasn't good directing. And here's why. The reason why I think the humor worked in Peacemaker and not in She-Hulk is because alongside the humor, Kevin, there was heart. There was absolute heart in Peacemaker that simply never existed in She-Hulk. There were moments when Peacemaker, whether it's his feeling about his father, whether it's the friendship, there's heart beyond what you see.
Yeah, I don't tell you my real identity for your sake. I don't want to put a target on you. People will try to use you to get to me. Hey, where does this go?
With the other tapes? You think people are going to torture me to get your secret identity?
I am extra special careful in all my heroic endeavors, which is probably the reason why, and I don't mean to be a prick, you went to prison and I didn't. Where's this go?
The CD rack, dude.
See, when they put my mugshot up in the post office, it's just going to be a circle with a red visor. And they're going to have to figure out what my head looks like based on the shape. And I know I have a bony face because I don't do face muscle exercises, but that doesn't cut down very much on the suspects. Hey, holy shit, look at that. It's a funny smiley man. Hey, do you want to come over and play? Man, that's adorable. Hey, how'd you get out anyway?
I work for the government, okay?
Post office?
You think they'd fucking let me out of prison to deliver mail?
I don't know. It was the first government job I could think of.
Dude, I kill people for them, okay? I did it down in Corto Maltese, and now I gotta do it here in Evergreen. That's why I'm out, in exchange for that.
Oh, that's sick.
I used to think God put me here for a purpose, for peace. And I always said I didn't care how many people I needed to torture or kill to get it. But... You know, lately I'm just thinking I'm a fucking maniac. Like, I don't know, I'm having feelings about things.
Okay.
I never got that. I also got the same thing in Miss Marvel. Miss Marvel was a simple show, nothing spectacular, nothing great, nothing out of control. But I love that show. Why? Because there was heart in it. So,
do you know why we named you Kamala? Your mother and I tried for years to have a second child. We'd almost lost all hope. And then you came. Oh, Beta, you were just so perfect. That's what Kamal means in Arabic. Perfect. But in Urdu, it's more like, what's the word? Wonder. Marvel. Kamal means marvel.
I share the same name as Carol frickin' Danvers.
I don't know who that is. But you sure are, and always have been, our own little Miss Marvel. No,
I love you.
love you too.
So if you compare the relationship between Kamala Khan and her best friend, the young boy, there's a development, and you get to know why they're close, and you get to appreciate it. And they have a personal connection, but it extends to the family. When he comes into the home, the way he's received, there's a connection that tells you that there's a history there, and you get to care for that connection. And that connection builds. It builds because she meets the other character, I forget the name, and he's cute. And the first guy is kind of jealous, and you feel that sense of jealousy. And so that singular relationship is developed, right? Her relationship with her mother is developed. It's a little bit contentious at times. Why don't you let me do what I want to do? Which is something that we've all experienced, whether as parents or as children, all the way till you're the one, I love you, and you're the superhero, and I want to support you. There's a build, and so on and so on and so on, with multiple characters. The brother, the bad girl that was and so on and so forth. The same way the story in Miss Marvel also builds to a crescendo. She develops her powers, finds out about herself, finds out about her history, and it comes to a head. There was none of that in the She-Hulk. Think about her relationship with that, I guess, best friend, the secretary. There's no character development there whatsoever. There's none. And that's the closest thing that you have to character development. You also have mistakes, I think, in the show. I think the first few episodes were lazy, and that's the word I'm going to use. They were absolutely and utterly lazy. The way she gained her powers was just lazy. It's uncreative. You look at the very first episode, not only does she gain her power in a very lazy way, but the rest of the episode is lazy. She goes into a bathroom and a bunch of women walk into the bathroom, and their only concern is to put makeup on her. She goes into the bar, and the only thing the women are concerned about is her makeup. They think she's just been beat up by her man, and you demean women to the point where, oh, I'm just gonna put makeup on you and throw you outside, like without a care in the world. Nobody's calling a taxi, nobody's calling an ambulance, nobody's doing anything. The men show up, they're automatically bad guys and rapists. And why was she hulking out? Like, there was no explanation for that, because she goes from I become the Hulk immediately to hulking out and uncontrollably to waking up and, oh, I'm perfectly fine. So there was a lot of laziness in the beginning of the shows. The fight sequences were non-existent. They were lazy. They were bad.
Jen, do your thing. God, I really like this outfit.
They introduced Daredevil. There were a lot of cameos. So let's talk about the cameos. The cameos, to me, again, it's like you said something earlier. You said that Marvel basically says, hey, you know what? This is comic book, so let's treat it as comic. And it's like, it's comic book, and we have a given audience, and so let's not respect the material. Let's just throw anything out there, and we know they're gonna like it or hate it, because they're a bunch of crazy idiots anyway. There's no sense of ownership, and let me make something of quality, something compelling, something powerful, something interesting. So the cameos, you're introducing the Wrecking Crew, and you're introducing them in the worst possible way. Like, why even call them the Wrecking Crew? Why even call them the Wrecking Crew? You're taking Emo Blonsky, the Abomination, and completely turning him into something absolutely that he's never been. And here's the problem with that. Not only are you taking it away from the source material, but not to the detriment of the character. He's less interesting. He's inconsequential. He's a joke. You're taking one of the most powerful Hulk nemesis, and you're turning him into a guru, jokey, nice guy. Like, you're doing the opposite of what you're supposed to do, my friend. And that's culminated to Leapfrog, which was another joke, poorly delivered. I think they watched Peacemaker and they were like, okay, let's do it a little bit better. And I think that's why some of the later episodes were a little bit better. The humor was a little bit better. I could see they were trying to emulate it a little bit. But we're talking about the cameos all the way until Daredevil. Kevin, so I'm torn about seeing Daredevil. And for me, it mostly falls in the negative. I hate to say it. Why does it fall in the negative for me? Because that costume doesn't work for me. It's like, it's unbelievable. It's like anti-Daredevil. It's anti-superhero. We keep running away from the superhero genre. We keep running away from it. And every time I see a costume with mesh material and Kevlar cover and the explanation, it's like, bro, that's not what the superhero genre is. That's not what it is. Sometimes I understand it. I never support it. I accept it sometimes, but it's not what the superhero genre. But not only did you do that, but you changed the colors, and it's not attractive. It's not better, Kevin. It's not better. Why would you do that? It's not better.
I'm sorry. The character Daredevil almost looked like he was wearing a padded football uniform.
Yes. He was wearing something that you could go out and any sports place and purchase. You're right, like a biker, like one of those biker jackets, and so on and so forth. And not only that, but you introduced Daredevil in a completely different way than the precedent that you had set in the previous series, using the same actor. Now he's kind of a happy-go-lucky guy. He's kind of like a chill guy, and you take away completely from the gravitas that was established by the Netflix. So yes, it was kind of cool to see a Daredevil versus Hulk little brouhaha, which again was kind of lazy, not great, but it wasn't awful. But that was the only possible saving grace, which compared to the other two factors, the horrible change in the costume, the change in personality and character, the waste of it. Like, there was no story. There was nothing going on that I cared about using Daredevil and She-Hulk. And so for all those reasons and more, my friend, I say She-Hulk was it's a disappointment, because I feel that the MCU, particularly as a TV series, has gotten so lazy, so like, I think Kevin Feige is phoning it in. I hate to say it, but that's how I feel.
Well, to be honest with you, I couldn't agree with you more on several levels. This is why I'm worried about a number of the upcoming movies.